The most important message for us to recognize is that what is here is already perfect and divine. When we gather together in Satsang, we recognize together the truth of this. That is the meaning of Satsang. Satsang can be seen as seeking truth or being in truth. And there is a big difference between the two. Seeking truth is still an activity of the ego, of the seeker ego, which wants to find something and which is the default state of everyone, because everybody is seeking, not just the seekers, but everyone is a seeker in fact, because everyone is seeking something or the other, either new experiences, new relationships, new pleasures. It's all in the realm of seeking, pursuit of happiness as it's put. So that's the default state of the human experience, is to seek, because there is the conditioning that emphasizes the sense of separate identity, which is the root fallacy, which is the reason for all seeking. So when a child grows up, through both genetic and societal conditioning, very soon the child develops an image of himself or herself, and that image becomes ossified as me, and that image is constantly taking different forms, and yet it seems like it's a persistent self-image, the sense I am this or that. And with that persistent image, there is never satisfaction, because it is inherently separate. So there is the flow of life energy, which is what all of nature we see, and even a small child we see. There is no separation from that flow in a little baby or a young child. They are spontaneous. But that spontaneity is gone when a self-image is created. And it happens inevitably. And once the self-image is created, it's built with more and more experiences, more and more knowledge, time, and it seeks various things because it is inherently limited. The flow of life is infinite. In that flow of life, in that infinite flow, there is the illusion of a finite self as me. And the finite is obviously never satisfied, because it has lost the home. It is a ghost, it is a shadow which seeks the infinite, because it's aware of its limitedness in its natural state of being separate, even if it's looking for anything, it's actually looking really for the infinite. But it wrongly thinks that the infinite can be found through activities of itself. So every seeking is really seeking for the infinite, or we can say seeking God. All seeking is really seeking God, whether it's seeking any pleasure or any power or any experience, it's ultimately subconsciously seeking God. But the ego doesn't recognize it. It's looking for various experiences, thinking that experience will satisfy me. And when that experience happens, it realizes that there is nothing there. Again, it starts seeking. So it's a never ending cycle. And then the last seeking is the seeking of God consciously. So, for the same seeker ego that is subconsciously seeking for God through other experiences, when it becomes a seeker, quote unquote, then it starts seeking God consciously, seeking enlightenment, liberation, all the rest. And even that seeking is only rooted in the finite ego's conception of the infinite. And the finite ego can never conceive the infinite, so it tries to capture it through some idea or some image or through some state or through the imagined projection of someone living in that state. So, in various ways, the same seeker image projects this experience of God now or enlightenment, and in organized religions, it is made into a seeking of a time and place based experience such as heaven. And in the East generally, but even in mystical realms of mystical Christianity and so on, there is the seeking of a state of living here, which is not an external heaven, but it's still a seeking, where there is a seeking for a particular imagined state of liberation or enlightenment. And that can be seen as the last seeking, but it's a very powerful bondage for the ego actually, because that seeking can make the ego feel very pious, and that feeling pious can boost the ego as a holier than thou attitude, and it's seeking constantly with that separation. All along, the paradox is that it is always part of the infinite. So the infinite has never gone anywhere. It is here and now, but the imagined finite ego is seeking for the infinite as a future state. So that is the paradox, and therefore that future state never arrives, because only the real can be realized. Imaginary projection will never happen. So the seeker ego then, out of this division between the seeker and the goal, perpetuates itself and constantly feeding that ego through various activities. So that is seeking truth. But being in truth is the recognition directly that the very seeker is false and truth is here and now. So the seeker can never find. When the seeker goes, what is already here is what the seeker was looking for. That's the conundrum. So the real essence of satsang, therefore, is not to give something to the seeker ego, which is what many times goes in the name of satsang. You can do this, or you can do that, or you can practice this. All of these are carrots for the seeker ego to do more, and the doing and doing and doing is just strengthening the ego. Learn more, study more, meditate more, practice more, go here, go there, visit him, visit her. There is just infinite ways in which the seeker ego can be engaged. And to feed the seeker ego is not truly satsang, though it happens in many satsang. But the real essence of satsang is to point out that the seeker is false. There is nothing for the seeker ego. That is the true essence of satsang, is to disappoint the seeker, not give any hope to the seeker. Giving hope to the seeker is actually perpetuating the bondage. So when the seeker sees the futility of seeking, but there is a recognition rather, which is not of the seeker, but there is a direct recognition that what is here and now is sacred and it's undivided and it's non-dual, therefore, then that is the essence of Sat or truth. So that is why we have the beautiful symbolism, for instance, of the dance of Shiva, which represents the cosmic dance that's happening, where the dance and the dancer cannot be separated. We cannot see the dance without seeing the dancer. They are integrated together, the creation and the creator. And therefore, this dance of the universe is the cosmic dance, and it's happening through all of us right now. So we don't have to, therefore, do anything. The very doing is separation from this dance. And in fact, that separation is also part of the dance. So it is also part of the Leela. So when there is an imagination that there is a separate ego here that is separating itself from the flow of energy and says, I am doing this, I am doing that, that very separation is a part of the dance. And when that separation is seen as false and it collapses, that is also part of the dance. So the cosmic energy is unaffected by the seeker's presence or not, but it is just that the imagined seeker creates suffering through this division for the imagined individual. So when that is collapsed, that is gone, then what remains is the flow of the infinite, and it is always happening here and now with no need to separate from it, with nothing to gain, nothing to attain, everything perfect now. And that is what so many names have been given, but no name is perfect. Whether that's called as pure consciousness without content, pure awareness, beingness, nothingness, no thing, different ways in which people have captured it to try to point to that which cannot be pointed to. And in that very pointing, there is, of course, both it helps, but at the same time, it can also act as an obstacle. So one has to hold it lightly, just like the finger pointing to the moon. One cannot get focused on the finger. So the word, for instance, Brahman means immensity. That which is immense is infinite, and therefore all these names do not point to anything. They point to that which is, which cannot be named, which cannot be grasped, which is just the infinite flow of energy. So we can never try to understand it, grasp it, realize it, because we are already part of it. So the whole essence of this is to therefore recognize this, and thereby that can be called the state of surrender. Not that somebody is surrendering, but there is just surrender. There is just no attempt to understand, realize, experience any of that. Just surrender to what is. And that is true satsang, and that can go on through the day, every moment. In fact, even to say every moment is a division made by the ego, in reality, there is only this. There is no other thing, because it is just the truth of this right now, and that keeps on flowing in its own way like a river. So just as a river cannot be really divided, even time cannot be divided. We can divide time only for practical purposes, such as planning a trip or whatever, but otherwise there is no time except this, and this right now is all there is, and that is perfect. So that's the core of the direct pointer of non-duality, that cannot be realized or understood, but it can be recognized just as the piece of what is right now.